On March 21, 2016, Carter Page joined the Trump campaign as a foreign policy advisor. 6 months later, on September 23, Carter Page left the Trump campaign because of investigations into alleged contacts between himself and Russian officials who were subject to U.S. sanctions. One of those officials under sanctions was Igor Sechin, the president of state-run Russian oil conglomerate, Rosneft. In October 2016, the FBI obtained a FISA warrant for Carter Page, and over the next 12 months the FISA warrant was extended 3 times. Here, Jim Comey explains who would be considered a subject of the investigation.
I have been authorized by the Department of Justice to confirm that the FBI, as part of our counterintelligence mission, is investigating the Russian government's efforts to interfere in the 2016 presidential election. And that includes investigating the nature of any links between individuals associated with the Trump campaign and the Russian government, and whether there was any coordination between the campaign and Russia's efforts.
It is clear that Jim Comey would investigate anyone in the Trump campaign with connections to Russia. There has been a lot of discussion about whether these warrants were justified or not. On Fox News, the Republicans in Congress were alleging that, 1, the Steele dossier was the driving force behind the Trump-Russia investigation. 2, that the FISA court was not told that the Clinton campaign was behind the Steele dossier. And 3, that the FBI did not verify the factual allegations contained in the dossier. One of those appearing on Fox News was Jim Jordan, and here is what he had to say.
You got to take it in context, Liz. Remember what they did in the summer of 2016. They opened up an investigation into then-candidate Trump. They spy on 2 American citizens associated with his campaign. They used the now famous dossier, the salacious, unverified dossier, Jim Comey's words, not mine, the dossier that they knew was Russian disinformation, that they knew was false, that they knew was paid for by the Clinton campaign, and that they knew the guy who wrote it, Christopher Steele, had already told the Justice Department he was desperate to stop Trump. They used that as a basis to go spy on one of those 2 individuals.
In Jim Jordan's opinion, the FISA warrant was illegally obtained, for the sole purpose of spying on the Trump campaign. But not all Republicans felt that way. On CNN, Marco Rubio said this.
I don't think they did anything wrong. I think they went to the court. They got the judges to approve it. They laid out all the information, and there was a lot of reasons unrelated to the dossier for why they wanted to look at Carter Page.
In August 2020, the Republican-controlled Senate Intelligence Committee released its final report on the 2016 Russian election interference, finding that despite problems with the FISA warrant requests used to surveil him, the FBI was justified in its counterintelligence concerns about Carter Page. In December 2018, the FISA warrant was investigated by the Inspector General's office. In a statement by Inspector General Michael Horowitz, he concluded that the FISA warrant, and the first extension, were justified, but that there were improprieties in how the FBI handled the second and third FISA warrant extensions. And finally, during an interview on MSNBC, Attorney General William Barr said, "The Inspector General's report now makes clear that the FBI launched an intrusive investigation into a U.S. presidential campaign on the thinnest of suspicions, that, in my view, were insufficient to justify the steps taken." Congressman Jim Jordan, and the Trump Republicans, claimed that the FISA warrants were obtained solely on the corrupt Steele dossier, so that the FBI could spy on the Trump campaign. And William Barr stated that the FISA warrants against Carter Page were issued on the thinnest of suspicions. Is this true? Were the FISA warrants on Carter Page based solely on a corrupt Steele dossier? And were the FISA warrants obtained for the sole purpose of spying on the Trump campaign? Here is some of what the FBI knew about Carter Page. In 1998, Carter Page joined the Eurasia Group, a political risk strategy consulting firm. He left 3 months later. Eurasia Group President Ian Bremmer later recalled on his Twitter feed that Page's strong pro-Russian stance was not a good fit for the firm. 2 years later, in 2000, Carter Page began work as an investment banker with Merrill Lynch in the firm's London office. He later became a vice president at the Moscow branch. In 2008, after leaving Merrill Lynch, Page founded his own investment fund, Global Energy Capital. One of his partners was a former mid-level Russian energy executive at Gazprom, Sergei Yatsenko. Recently, Page has stated that he worked on transactions involving Gazprom and other leading Russian energy companies. Between 2008 and 2012, Carter Page was an operational contact for the CIA. This meant the agency could ask him for information he already knew, but not task him with gathering new information. In January of 2013, Carter Page passes documents about the oil market to Viktor Podobny, a Russian intelligence agent. Page later claims the documents were public information. In 2015, Viktor Podobny is charged with being an unregistered foreign agent. On April 13, 2013, 2 agents of the Russian Foreign Intelligence Service discuss recruiting Page. On July 3, 2013, Carter Page schedules a dinner with potential investor, Russian oligarch Viktor Vekselbert, to pitch his fledgling natural gas business. On August 25, 2013, Page sends a letter to the academic press in which he claims to be an advisor to the Kremlin. In 2014, Carter Page was the subject of a Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act warrant in connection with his ties to Yevgeny Beryakov, Viktor Podobny, and a third Russian, who attempted to recruit him, Igor Sporishev. In January of the following year, a court filing, by the U.S. government, contains a transcript of a recorded conversation between 2 members of a Russian SVR spy ring, Viktor Podobny and Igor Sporishev. In their conversation, they discuss efforts to recruit male 1, later confirmed as Carter Page. Podobny calls Page an idiot and tells Sporishev, "You get the documents from him and tell him we no longer need him." 1 year later, in January of 2016, Carter Page emails senior Trump campaign officials informing them that his discussions with a high-level contact with close ties to the Kremlin led him to believe that a direct meeting in Moscow between Trump and Putin could be arranged. In early March 2016, Sam Clovis, co-chair and policy advisor for Donald Trump, recommends Carter Page to the Trump campaign. A few weeks later, Carter Page begins working for the Trump campaign as an unpaid foreign policy advisor. March 21, in a Washington Post interview, Trump names members of his foreign policy team. The names include Carter Page. On April 1, Carter Page is invited to deliver a commencement address at the New Economic School in Moscow. On May 6, 2016, in London, George Papadopoulos tells Australian ambassador, Alexander Downer, that the Russians have politically damaging material on Hillary Clinton. Australian officials pass this information to American officials, causing the FBI to open a counterintelligence investigation into the Trump campaign. On May 16, Page and others meet with the Trump campaign and suggest that Trump give the commencement speech at the New Economic School in Moscow instead of Page. In June of 2016, Fusion GPS hires Christopher Steele to research Trump's activities in Russia. The resultant 35-page document is published on January 10, 2017 by BuzzFeed News. That same month, at a closed-door gathering of foreign policy experts visiting with the Prime Minister of India, Page hails Putin as stronger and more reliable than Obama, and touts the positive effect a Trump presidency would have on U.S.-Russia relations. Later in June, Page again requests permission from the Trump campaign to speak at the new economic school commencement in Moscow, and reiterates that the school would love to have Mr. Trump speak at this annual celebration. Corey Lewandowski responds that Page can attend in his personal capacity but Mr. Trump will not be able to attend. During the summer of 2016, the FBI applies for a FISA warrant to monitor the communications of 4 Trump campaign officials. The FISA court rejects the application, asking the FBI to narrow its scope. In October, a FISA warrant on Carter Page alone is granted. It is renewed 3 times. This brings us back to December of 2018, when William Barr said that the FBI went too far in ordering a FISA warrant against Carter Page. But is this really true? Clearly, Carter Page had a history with the Russians, going back to the year 2000, when he worked for Merrill Lynch's London office as vice president of the Moscow branch. Then in 2008 he formed his own energy business in Russia. After that, from 2008 to 2013, he was a CIA informant. And in 2014 he was approached by Russian intelligence as a possible recruit. These contacts had caused a previous FISA warrant to be issued back in 2014. When Carter Page joined the Trump campaign in 2016 as a foreign policy advisor, there was ample evidence that he had been involved with the Russians for a long time. And because of this involvement, Carter Page certainly fell within the purview of the FBI's investigation. And when presented with the facts concerning Carter Page, the FISA court found enough evidence to issue a warrant and renew it 3 times. Inspector General Michael Horowitz concluded that the FISA warrant was justified. As for Attorney General William Barr, Jim Jordan, and the rest of the Trump Republicans, their objections were more fantasy than fact.